Good evening, everyone. First of all, on behalf of PMI India, happy to see you all join the fifth episode of PMI India's Common Ground webinar series. This has been a fascinating journey over the last 5 weeks. On behalf of PMI India, this is Kaushik Srinivasan from Chennai, and my co-host for today's session, as usual, is Monica from the Pearl City of Hyderabad. We will be taking you through today's proceedings. We've had 5 fascinating sessions, and it is great to see nearly 800 plus people joining us on a Saturday afternoon to learn and to upskill ourselves in what can only be described as extremely challenging times. And each one of us have found different ways to cope up with these challenges. PMI India's brainchild of Common Ground is a way for all of us to adapt and help ourselves to find commonalities where, in spite of our diverse backgrounds and various domain expertise, we all come together to learn on a common ground and hopefully take this back into our domains and implement it for the good of everybody. We have had extremely interesting sessions, and today's session promises to be very, very, very interesting as well, because it is going to touch upon something that's extremely, extremely important to all of us, our own mental well-being and our ability to maintain a mental balance in these stressful times takes much greater importance. The last 5 weeks, like I said, have been very, very interesting in terms of the variety and the diversity of topics that we have covered as a part of the Common Ground series, from decisions around strategy with Pankaj, from leadership with Sujan, and last week about stakeholder management and empathy with Suman Ghosh and Colonel Harsha, and then talking about the entire COVID situation with Deepa Bide, who gave us an insight into what the frontline people are handling and the complexity of managing the COVID-19 project itself. Leading to all of these discussions and topics, today PMI is very, very happy to welcome Radhika Vachani. Thank you, Radhika, for joining us and spending your very valuable time with us. Radhika is the founder of the Institute of Inner Wellbeing and Excellence. And simply put, she wants to transform the world one breath at a time, and she's extremely passionate about it. In her opinion and in her thought process, every person in the world goes through challenges. The most successful people in the world have challenges, and she strongly believes that the level of well-being that we have is what is going to help us overcome those challenges successfully and convert those challenges into opportunities. In her experience and life of experience of over 20 years of both personal and supporting individuals and leaders, she helps them create self-awareness and improve their mental well-being. And she likes to say that it all starts with first knowing what is your mental state, and I think many of you have also filled up the feedback form for that. She also loves to lead retreats into Ladakh and Himalayas, and I'm sure that's a great place, Radhika, to go and have a meditative retreat. Thank you once again for joining us, and over to you, Radhika.
Thank you, Kaushik, and thank you to PMI for organizing this and for all of you for taking your time to be here today. I'm really honored to be at this session, and I'm looking forward to sharing this time with you. So I'm just going to wait for Kaushik to get set up. So today's session is specifically about converting challenges to opportunity. And I thought that before I get started, I was wondering I was wondering if any of you have any thoughts on what you think may be the most important element when it comes to being able to, face adversity and convert challenges into opportunities. So any thoughts? I'd love to hear from the audience. What do you think is the most important element in your perspective to be able to convert challenges to opportunities?
I request people in the audience to use the Q&A box to just give out the answers. You will not be able to speak out loud, sorry, but you can type in your answers in the Q&A box.
Safety, okay. Anyone else? Resilience. Good evening. Confidence and excellent planning. Okay.
Radhika, a few people messaging privately. Courage, clarity of thought, self-consciousness. These are some of the answers that are coming. Thinking about the future.
Great. So Kaushik, thank you for that. And it's just nice to know what everyone's thinking. Well, a lot of you are thinking. And Kaushik, maybe we can go to the next slide now. Kaushik, can you just open up the slide a little bit? Go to full view, please. Okay, so I'd like to start with a very simple idea, which has actually been the life transforming factor for me. If you actually think about it, all of us live in a physical environment that's just in constant flux. It's always changing, it's uncertain, and it's impermanent. But if you really think about the human dilemma, we spend our lives as human beings seeking peace, permanence, and certainty in this very physical environment. And you only have to sort of take a step back and observe nature, and you will see that nothing in nature is permanent, right? So sunrise, sunset, high tide, low tide, day and night. One day you're healthy, one day you're not. We all start out as babies. Our bodies are changing on a second to second basis. So it's very interesting that while nature is giving us messages every single minute, every single day, that nothing in the physical environment is permanent, it started becoming really interesting to me that why is it that us human beings keep seeking peace, permanence, and certainty in the very physical environment where there is no messaging to show us that things remain the same. And I'm sure if I asked any of you to pick any situation in your life or to reflect back on your life, you would notice that there's very little in your life and perhaps nothing at all that has remained the same. So really the crux of everything that we teach at the Institute of Inner Wellbeing and Excellence is that all of us have this idea of seeking permanence and peace in the physical environment when in fact it's never going to be that. So the first journey that needs to begin for all of us is to start to understand that we need to start changing our thinking, and we need to start getting comfortable with the fact that the physical environment is uncertain, it is impermanent, and it is volatile. So next time that we are faced with volatility and uncertainty, we should be prepared mentally to understand that if we're experiencing peace and certainty, it's just a question of time before the other state gets represented. Kaushik, next one, please. So what's important to understand is that this physical environment that's in constant flux, that's impermanent and uncertain, has the ability to cause us an immense amount of stress and anxiety. But the reality is, and for the first time, we're all sitting here globally in our interconnectedness to understand that challenges are an inherent part of life. So if we are going to overcome challenges and if we are going to still be able to deliver our highest potential, what is it, the trick for us to be able to do this? And really, if you kind of study, and I love to look at athletes. In fact, right now on Netflix, I'm watching Michael Jordan's his documentary called The Last Dance. And it's an incredible show about resilience and the ability to overcome adversity. But what's really interesting, if you watch successful people who really, outdone themselves, is the fact that they have this ability to stay on track. So clearly, if we don't have high levels of mental well-being, if we don't have high levels of resilience, being able to stay on track will be very difficult because as we get stressed, as we get fearful, these are factors that have the ability to pull us off track. So one point that I'd like to bring up and sort of bring attention to is today I'm speaking about mental well-being. And mental well-being is very different from mental health or somebody that has a mental health disorder and needs medical support and attention. So the way I like to look at it is that if somebody has a mental health issue, they would need the support of medication, psychiatrists to help them reach to a normal state. Mental well-being refers to our ability to go from normalcy to achieving our highest potential. So there are several barriers to mental well-being. I think that I am a mentally healthy person. However, based on me living my day-to-day life, and as things come up slowly, environments change, challenges come up, there are three major issues that affect our mental well-being. And those three aspects are your mental barrier would be negative thoughts, having low levels of self-confidence, limiting beliefs, lack of clarity of mind, a cluttered mind. That would be your mental barrier. An emotional barrier would be fear, anxiety, sadness, isolation factors. And then the third barrier is physical wellness, which I think most of us are very familiar with. If we lead unhealthy lifestyles, don't get enough sleep, don't move enough, low quality nutrition. So the three dimensions are essential for us to experience high levels of mental well-being. And really, the easiest way for me to put it out there is that um, we might decide to go for a run and we might participate in an hour of exercise a day or 5 times a week. But if somebody were to decide to be an Olympic athlete, they would need a series of support systems to allow them to reach their highest potential. So they would need high quality nutrition, they would need a support system of people, they would need the mental focus, the mental clarity, and really what an athlete or an Olympic athlete is claiming is their desire and ability to be their best potential. So in the same token, all of us who have decent levels of mental well-being every single day, we're getting on with life, we're doing our best. But if you decided that you wanted to really reach high performance and deliver your highest potential, just like the athlete has a process to follow, just like the athlete needs a support system in place that would allow him or her to reach their highest potential, the same applies for any of us. So I think what's really important to understand and also be honest with yourself about is who are you in this journey? Not everybody wants to be a high performer, and that's perfectly okay. Lots of people are pretty satisfied with their lives. And really, part of this journey of understanding how much you want to push your mental well being will depend upon how clear you are with what you want out of your life. There's no question about the fact that all of us human beings want to live purposeful lives. We want to feel valued. We want to contribute to something larger than ourselves. And we also want to be able to reach our highest potential. So this is where the aspect of and conversation of mental well-being comes into place. Up until the pandemic, globally, the world was focused on ensuring that people had good physical wellness and people had good mental health. But what's been interesting about the pandemic is that finally we've had sort of this lens, this view into millions of people like me who feel fear, anxiety, sadness, etc. And now what the World Health Organization has been very clear about, and you're going to see a lot more articles on this, is that if people like you and me do not protect our mental well-being, it's a sliding scale. So before I go any further, I'd like people to understand that people don't just develop high levels of mental well-being and resilience overnight. It's something that you have to work with every single day so that when you are faced with those negativity, the fear, and the isolation factors, you're not just plugging ahead, but you're actually stopping, recognizing what you're thinking and feeling, and you're actually doing something about it. Kaushik, next slide, please. Okay, so before we can actually understand mental well-being, it's really important for us to understand how our minds work, because we have very little information in school or in college or even in training programs that explain to us how the mind works. Now, if you have a repetitive thought, it's going to impact your emotions. And your thoughts impact your emotions, and your emotions impact your actions, and how you act and the decisions that you take impact all your life experiences, whether it's professional or personal. So just to repeat myself one more time, all your thoughts impact your emotions impact your actions, and your actions impact the quality of your professional and personal life experiences. So, for example, if I'm constantly in a negative and in a negative state of mind, eventually my emotions are going to start getting impacted. I might feel fear, I might feel frustration, I might feel anger, and then eventually my emotions, somebody who's not feeling very well is not going to go out and love and hug the world. They're going to be in a very down emotional state, and they may, for example, be a lot on keep watching TV, social media, binging, overeat, drinking, smoking, etc. If I'm not feeling good, my energy levels on what I put out to the world will not be so positive and so impactful. So really, to come to understand how our mind works, we come to a very simple understanding is that what is happening for all of us, and I call it the tsunami effect, because every time any one of us experiences or comes in or engages with the physical environment, whether it's a person, a situation, or even a physical object, we actually have a chemical reaction. So if you like what you see, you're going to release happy chemicals, and you are going to go into an extremely ecstatic and a happy state, and your mind is going to start creating happy stories for you. If you do not like what you see, or if your life is not going in a particular way, you're going to start releasing negative, so-called negative chemicals, and your brain is going to start spinning a story that supports the negativity. So whether you are thinking positive or negative, actually what is happening is that when the chemicals get released, your mind comes in and sweeps you away into this imaginary world of storytelling. At some point, we start to believe the mental stories. And the most important aspect right now is that we start to disconnect with reality. So you stop experiencing reality for what it is, and actually your reality starts to get influenced by the story that you're telling yourself. So all your experiences of fear, anger, sadness, etc., is because of the story that you have been telling yourself. And the mind becomes an extremely overpowering instrument, and after a point, it starts to control all of us. Kaushik, next. Now, there is something called emotional hijacking. So, what happens is that when our thoughts become so overpowering, and while we're looking at it, what one would call a negative experience in this slide, it actually goes the same. It also goes to positive experiences. When my mind has become so powerful with my storytelling, then my emotions become so charged that it's called emotional hijacking. You no longer have control of your behavior and your response or your reaction to the world. Now imagine that you had a very positive experience. Your mind can also go into fantasy storytelling, and you may create a story which is actually not real. So, for example, imagine you had a very positive experience with your boss at work, and you get all excited and you think, you know what, I'm getting the promotion, and you start to imagine, you play the scene of how your boss tells you about the promotion, etc., and you spend days dreaming about this. And then eventually days go by and you never got that promotion. And actually, perhaps all your boss wanted to do was to tell you how well you're doing at your job, but it wasn't time for your promotion yet. So, positivity and negativity are both highly powerful experiences. And the most important thing that I want to kind of bring up with emotional hijacking and the tsunami effect is that both the mental and emotional dimension of us cuts us off from reality. And this imaginary world of storytelling becomes your and my individual reality. And we start to see the world from up here rather than being engaged with the world that is actually transpiring. So, for example, in this webinar right now, some of you may be really focused on listening to what I'm saying. So this would be reality. Some of you might be saying, oh my God, what she's saying is so true. And you know what? This is what I'm doing. And suddenly the mind has swept you away. So perhaps some of you are even experiencing this right now. Kaushik, next. So as you saw in my profile, I have been a very avid practitioner of the Indian holistic sciences. I've been a Iyengar student now for 23 years. I've meditated daily for 23 years, and I've done my breathing practices for 23 years. And after this incredible inner journey that I have been on, we're living in a country that's very historically rich with ancient practices. And today, globally, the world is looking to us and our practices to derive wisdom from. So when we look at the ancient practices in India, what is really important for all of us is not to blindly follow those practices, but to actually take the wisdom from them and apply them to our modern day life. Because life is evolving all the time. What may have been applicable then is not necessarily applicable today. However, there's a very rich history of wisdom that all of us can learn from. So while we have fantastic gurus who talk about enlightenment, here's a great reality. Here's a great reality check. If you read the ancient wisdom, and I've in particular studied the Yoga Sutras, the goal of human life is not to attain Buddhahood in terms of Buddha deciding to become a mystic and he exited from day-to-day life, but for any one of us who still want to participate in the physical world and be a part of it, our goal is skillful living. So let's come back to my first slide where I brought up the fact that the physical environment is in constant motion. It is impermanent, it's uncertain, and it's very volatile. I mean, imagine the volatility that we are experiencing today. So I cannot change my physical environment. I cannot change somebody else. The only thing that I have control of and you have control of is to be able to look at whatever challenge or circumstances that we are faced with and have the ability to maneuver the adversity, the stress, the challenge, whatever it may be, with skill. So if there's one takeaway that I want one of the important takeaways of today is that we need to start changing the way we perceive the physical environment. We have to reach a point if we are going to live fulfilling, peaceful, happy lives, achieving our best potential. We must reach that state of mind where we become comfortable with the physical environment that's in constant flux. And really, it's up to each one of us to develop those levels of mental well being and resilience so that we can live life with skill. Skill is the takeaway word today. So for the next few minutes, I want to spend a little bit of time. Of course, this is not a full training session. It's just to give you important information is how do we get to a state of mind that enables us to look at any challenge that we are faced with, overcome it with skill and change that challenge into an opportunity. Kaushik, next, please. Okay, so the first thing, if I asked you to run a marathon tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to do it. So just like the Olympic athlete or a musician, or even if somebody, when you sign up at PMI, you go through a training program and there is a process involved for you to learn certain skills. There is nothing different about us also developing higher levels of mental well-being and resilience. These are learned skills for most of us. These are learned behaviors and they're learned thoughts. So the first thing that we need to recognize is the impermanent environment that we live in. We need to stop hoping and praying that, life is going to be peaceful, that suddenly circumstances are all going to come together and we're going to have certainty for our health, for our jobs, for our relationships. Nothing. Life gives us zero guarantees. It's a tough thing for us to come to terms with, but it's the truth. So how do we start living with skill in this impermanent environment? So the first step after we become comfortable with the awareness is to become more responsive versus reactive. So in the previous slides, I showed you emotional hijacking and the mind tsunami effect happens to people. And when we allow that to happen to ourselves, we're incapable of being responsive. We become extremely reactive. And if we stay in a reactive state of mind and with emotions that are charged, your thinking will be blurred. Your ability to participate in intelligent decision making will be compromised. And you will just be kind of bogged down. And we all know this because it happens to the best of us. And with the mind working overtime and with the emotions being so overwhelming, it's very difficult for us to come into a clear state of mind. And a clear state of mind is necessary if we are going to participate in unbiased thinking and also be able to make those decisions that actually supports not only your well-being but the well-being of everybody around you. Next slide. Thank you for all the comments coming in, by the way. It's nice for me to kind of glance over and see what all of you all are thinking. So I apologize if I'm a bit tough about things, but I think that the only way for us to move towards high level of mental well-being and high levels of resilience is if we start becoming more mature about a few things. And here's another aspect that I personally feel very strongly about. Which is the house that you live in 24 hours a day? I'd love to see your comments. Which is the house that all of us live in 24 hours a day without ever stepping out? Any thoughts? Your body, yes. What else? Anything else other than your body? Your mind. So imagine, so I'm going to ask you guys, so that's the right answer, your mind and your body. Now imagine how much money until the lockdown did we spend to beautify our homes, our offices, the clothes that we wore? How much money do we spend in the external world looking really beautiful? So guess what? We live in a house that we get on divorce, whether we work, whether we go on vacation, whether we are playing with our children, this is a house that we can never leave. So tell me, how much time do we spend to clean the house that we live in? Most people will say very little. Now, it's very easy for us to talk about being sustained high performers, wanting to live purposeful lives, wanting to have meaningful relationships in life, and wanting to live happy and satisfied. But if you don't clean up this house, if you don't honor the physical body that you live in, it's going to be a much more difficult journey for you. I'm not saying that you eventually won't get there, but it'll be a very difficult journey. So the first step for all of us before we can reach that state of mind that is clear, powerful, resilient, and can look at any difficulty that has come its way and say, so what? So I've trained my team to look at difficulty and say, so what? So the moment we say, so what, something seems to just relax. And when you look at it, when you look at a challenge and you say, so what, and you know that you have the tools that you have practiced to look at the situation, to gather the necessary data, to partake in unbiased analysis, you know that you're going to take the best step forward. But before we can do that, before we can reach those levels of clarity and focus and ability to deal with anxiety and fear, we first have to get the mind in order. So again, a point that I had brought up earlier, mental well-being is not something that you do once a week or once a month. Just like you would not get out of bed, well, maybe you would now during the lockdown, but normally we would not get out of bed and show up at the office without brushing our teeth, having a shower, and cleaning up. You have to first develop the same discipline to cleaning up your mind and spending the time to bring it in order before you face the world. So I do a lot of work with students, and even in terms of yoga, meditation, we run a whole academy with that. And constantly we see people, they'll become members, and then they'll say, when we ask them, okay, you showed up and then why didn't you come? Oh, I got really busy at work. So just like when your cell phone needs to be plugged in, your self needs to be nourished and recharged so that you can actually move outward and enjoy the world around you, whether it's in a challenging, in a positive, or in a negative state. Kaushik, is this my last slide? Okay, so
yes.
yeah.
Sorry,
okay, so
that was your last slide.
So I'm going to ask all of us, if you would please, I'm going to invite all of you to participate with me to just experience what I am talking about. And in my previous slide, I brought up the breath and I said the importance of the breath. Well, here's why the breath is really important. You cannot breathe in the future. You cannot breathe in the past. So when we start to use the breath as an anchor and we start to breathe consciously, the breath brings you into the present moment. What are all of us doing right now? We're clinging to people, we're clinging to situations, we're clinging to hopes and dreams. But dreams, people, situations, etc., belong in the physical world, and the physical world is churning, it's non-stop. But really, if you understand that the anchor lies within you and that peace, stability, certainty lies within you. So, what really our ancient practices are asking us to do is to take an about turn and to understand the importance of the breath or pranayama. And when you start to understand the incredible ability of the breath to keep anchoring you through your day, to keep cutting off that dreaming, chaotic mind, to keep balancing your emotions, that's when you start to feel incredible amounts of clarity. And you may think you're intelligent, creative, and skillful today, but when you come into these practices and you understand what it feels like to live in a mind that is empty, clear, and focused, you cannot imagine your ability for intelligence, creativity, and wisdom. But here's the tough part. Intellectual knowledge, like this webinar today, gives us great insight and information, but it does not transform. Only practice transforms. So I cannot take my practice and give it to you. I can share my experience from my practice. But if you want to experience what I'm speaking about and what we have centuries of people have spoken about, you have to have the willingness to say, every day I'm going to spend 5 minutes cleaning up my house in the morning and cleaning up my house in the evening. And then you will start to see the magic happen. So let me take you through an experiential session. If everyone, depending upon where you're sitting, if you're sitting on the ground, you're welcome to sit cross-legged, or you can, just go to the next slide, or you can just sit with your feet on the ground. And just make sure that whatever you are doing, you are sitting with a straight spine, right? So these are some of the support systems that I talk about when somebody wants to go, reach their highest potential, but we'll come back to that later. So sitting with your spine straight.
I remove the fan for the echo.
You're talking to me? Yeah, so just sitting with your spine straight.
I was not on mute.
And gently close your eyes. And I'm going to invite you to just stay with your eyes closed through the whole process, just to experience what I'm talking about. And just sit with the spine straight, your forehead relaxed, your facial muscles relaxed. And I'm going to just ask you to take a deep inhalation and a very slow exhalation. And now just bring your attention to your physical body. And just take a moment to connect with your physical self. Just notice the sensations in your physical body, how you're feeling right now. Perhaps you're feeling energized, dull and lethargic, restless. We're not here to judge. I just want you to note and observe the physical body and connect with the physical dimension. Now just bring your attention to your mind space and just notice what's going on in your mind and how you're feeling, what the mind state is. Perhaps it's clear and focused, or it may be restless and chaotic, or you might be feeling kind of dull and lethargic. Whatever the state may be, it's just information for you. So just coming into the awareness of the mind state. Now gently shift your attention over to your emotions. And just be cognizant of what you're feeling right now. How are you feeling? We're not trying to change anything. We just need to know. We need to label how we're feeling right now. Fearful, happy, satisfied, anger, frustration, whatever it may be. Just label your emotion and stay with the emotion. Now I'm going to ask you to bring your attention to your breath. And just notice how you're breathing. Does it feel difficult, easy? Is your breath shallow? Is it deep? And now continuing to keep your eyes closed, I'm going to ask you to gently place 2 fingers on your navel. And please, your touch should be light as a feather. Don't push your fingers in at any point. Just keep your fingers very lightly on the abdomen. And now, as I guide you through the breathing process, every time I say inhale, I'm going to ask you to inhale and gently push the stomach out, just very gently. And when you exhale, I'm going to ask you to slowly and very gently pull the navel in, but please do not push your fingers into the navel. The touch remains feather touch. Okay? So let's just begin. Bring your attention to the breath. And now, very slowly, take a nice deep inhalation, and with that, gently push your stomach out. Pause for a moment. And now, very slowly exhale and draw your navel into the spine without pushing your fingers in. And now, again, very slowly, let's inhale and gently take our stomach outwards. Now, very slowly exhale and draw your navel in. So I want you to continue to breathe like this, and I want you to use each inhalation as an opportunity to disconnect from the outside world and to go deeper into yourself. And I want you to use every exhalation as the opportunity, not just to release your breath, but with it, just release all known distractions, whether they're mental, emotional, or physical. And most importantly, I want you to move away from mechanical breathing and come into conscious breathing, where you are feeling each breath. And now, as your breath starts to become easier, and as you start to engage with your breath, I want you to imagine that you have walked through a door where you walked from the outside world and you are now walking into your inner world. I want you to shut that door and just be with yourself, feeling the breath. And now, if you want to release your finger, you can, but keep your eyes closed. And as we breathe consciously, just allow each inhalation to help you completely disconnect from physical activity, important or not, doesn't matter. And with each exhalation, and if you wish, you can slightly open your mouth only on the exhalation breath. Just let it go. Let go of your thoughts. Let go of your emotions. Just stay with the breath, allowing the breath to anchor you and supporting you to find your balance and your centeredness. And as you stay in your inner world, in your inner room, just allow yourself to recharge, replenish, and nourish yourself. Let your facial muscles become completely relaxed, your body relaxed, and keep feeling your breath. That's the most important. Stay with the breath. Just exhale out the thoughts, the emotions, the stresses, the fears. Just be willing to let them go. And now, without opening your eyes, I want you to gently bring your awareness back. Just stay with your eyes closed for a few moments. Just experience your state of stillness and quietude. Just stay there in a more aware state. And now, very slowly, when you are ready, I want you to very gently open your eyes. So, some of you want to just share how you're feeling before versus now. Okay, so still, conscious, better, relaxed, calm and light, relaxed and stressless, great experience. Okay, so really what I want, the idea of taking you through this experience is that all of us should be aspiring towards feeling like this most of the time. So I'm not saying that you have to spend your entire day meditating, certainly not. I love being I love my work life, I love engaging in the external world, and I'm not looking to become a mystic. So what's really important for all of us to understand is that if we don't keep up the practice, that when we are hit with the challenge, it's not possible for us to have mastered the tools to be able to overcome the challenge with skill and turn that into an opportunity. The person who turns a challenge into an opportunity is the person who's present, who's conscious, who has a clear mind, and who looks at a problem and says, here's the problem. How do we solve it? They gather the necessary information. They participate in unbiased analysis, and they then move forward with having right thought and right action. When the mind is clouded, when we are in stress and our energies are depleted, we cannot think straight. Our cognitive faculties have been compromised, and your ability to partake in skillful, intelligent thinking will be diminished. So, if you want to be the Olympic athlete, you have to start with 5 minutes a day. So, Kaushik, can we just go to the next slide? And I'm actually ready for questions. So a bunch of you filled out the well-being survey, and thank you so much for that. Where, as we had mentioned, we're happy to give everybody free well-being consultations. And while our office will be in touch with you, feel free to also WhatsApp us and finalize your consultation. Can I share my thoughts on being aspirational and imagining yourself? Achieving the goal will drive you to put right effort. Okay, so in order to turn dreams into reality, a lot of people do a lot of dreaming, but very few people are able to actually execute their thoughts and their dreams. So one really important aspect for us to understand is that while it is okay for us to dream, to have goals, and to have a goal that we are working towards, the best gift that you can give yourself is to put in your best efforts today. Today is going to determine the next step tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But if I keep sitting there and just doing a lot more thinking, then again, your mind is going to start getting clouded. So being clear about your goals, but also being very clear about your actions on a daily basis and being able to put in your best efforts and stay on track is a huge, huge aspect of being able to achieve your goals. So
Radhika, thank you.
Kaushik, I'm getting questions about the survey form. Unfortunately, it's too late to fill out the survey because we can't do this after the webinar, but we'll certainly be in touch with you. You can fill out the survey in another 2 to 3 weeks. We need to keep a gap after the webinar, otherwise the results won't be accurate. Kaushik, over to you.
Radhika, thank you for that wonderful session, and got some interesting questions for you. The question is from Ganesh Ningappa. He says, should we not focus on aspiration and imagining yourself into the next position? I think this is in relation to your slide about filling our head with thoughts.
That's Kaushik. I answered an almost identical question.
Correct. And the follow-up to that from Sabarishan is, are people with high EQ more prone to emotional hijacking?
No, actually the opposite. Emotional intelligence is a prerequisite of high levels of resilience. So people who are emotional, have high levels of EQ, are able not only to manage themselves, but also manage other people who get emotionally hijacked.
There are a few questions about breathing techniques, which I think you actually gave them an experiential learning, so that's great. This is a slightly interesting question. Jacob Rajesh says, imaginary stories gives temporary joy. Is that a disease? I enjoy killing my enemies in an imaginary world. Am I normal?
Listen, there is no such thing as abnormal, and I think that all of us have different ways of coping. There's nothing wrong with an imaginary world. The question is, how long are you going to engage in the imaginary world versus the world of reality, right? So at the end, so all of us need imaginations. We all need to hope and dream. But the question is, you have to decide what your goals in your life are. My goals may not be the same as somebody else's. And I think part of what I'm trying to say is having the ability to be authentic to yourself. If you are happy hanging out on a beach and playing a guitar, go do it. If you want to be the next, managing director of whatever company, go do it. But we all need to be true to ourselves.
Right, great. So imagination is good because I think a lot of us have a lot of imagination going for us. This question from Aparna Chandrasekhar, you covered it a little bit in your session. She says, knowing is not equal to doing. Cerebrally, I know that I should stay calm, yet I react quickly, sometimes too quickly. How do we rein this in? How does one stay in a clear state of mind, even when there is chaos all around us?
Simple practice. When you start practicing every day, when you're actually confronted with a challenge, it won't hit you. What hits us is the fact that we've never practiced. So it's the same thing, right? We can't expect at the end of the day, if we're not building our skills, then how do you expect yourself to be able to handle difficulty? So again, if I go back to the Olympic athlete, if the Olympic athlete suddenly showed up at the Olympic Games without training, do you think the person would succeed? No, they wouldn't. So your and my life is very equivalent to that. If I want to be able to handle any kind of stress, any magnitude of stress, then I need to put in my work every single day. So when I'm confronted with that, it doesn't knock me down. It's simple. So really the question is, I call it simple because I find it integral to my life. So I will not leave my room in the morning until I've done my work. So until somebody's saying there's no sound, no video, Kaushik.
Radhika, I think it's a temporary issue at their end. because I'm able to hear you, and it's not. I'm not getting one odd people, right?
Yeah. So everything that I say comes back to one very simple line. If you want to live if you want to live your highest potential, if you want to live with a lot of purpose and meaning, you have to take ownership for your life, for your state of mind, for the house that you live in. And it doesn't have, I started my journey with a 2-minute practice. The 2-minute became 5 minutes and then it starts to extend. If I go into this world of thinking, I recognize it in 2 minutes and I come back. It takes me less than 2 minutes to recognize when my mind is shifted and is engaging in thinking that is not supporting my well-being. So it's practice. There's no other easy way out. I wish there was.
One, multiple questions around controlling thoughts. Two specific streams. Even during the experiential learning, somebody has mentioned that I was not able to clear all my thoughts. And the link question is, how do we control negative thoughts? So one is how to get your mind blank for a period of time, and secondly, how to control negative thoughts if we can avoid it.
Okay. So I'll answer both. I'll answer the negative thoughts first. First, to control negative thoughts, you have to be aware that you're having a negative thought. So most people don't even realize they're having negative thoughts. So when you recognize, if I said to you, why don't you tell me what you're thinking? That's a very difficult thing to do. But if I said to Monica, tell me how you're thinking how you're feeling right now, she would answer me like that. So if I am feeling imbalanced, fearful, negative, then I know that my mind has not been thinking in a manner that supports me. So how do you catch a negative thought? You reverse it, even if it's temporary. So say your mind is just filled with that reoccurring thought. The first thing that you need to do is to get yourself into a better feeling place. You could listen to music. You could reverse your thought by saying, I am safe, I'm protected, whatever the opposite is. You could go for a walk, you could call a friend. You need to do something to cut that energy. And then you need to sit and work on your mind, whether you're journaling. And of course, there are lots of tools to do this, but unfortunately, I can't do this it's a whole training program. So how we learn to recognize the negativity and how we learn to reverse the negativity is a learned behavior. But when you are negative, cut the negativity, find something to shift your energy. And once you've shifted your energy, you can work with yourself. You could journal, you could visualize a different scenario, but you've got to shift your energy first.
Radhika, fantastic. And like you said, we do not have time to answer all questions today. So I will close with one last question, which seems very interesting. And maybe you can just give your top 2 or top 3 things that people can take away from today. Krishnan says, does heart play any role along with the body and mind in this entire process?
Does what play?
Does the heart?
Of course, we equate the heart to your emotions, right? So we equate the mind over here, we equate the emotions over here, and whether or not it does.
It's not my question.
Sorry?
No, sorry, I said that was the last.
Your heart is your emotional part of your body, right? So as a takeaway, if I ask you guys to take away a few points from today, one is first start to get comfortable with the fact that the physical environment is in flux. It's changing, it's uncertain. So start looking around you. Enjoy your evening, wake up to the morning. If you're living next to the sea, look at the sun, the low tide and the high tide. Look around you and start to become comfortable with impermanence, with uncertainty. Don't let it knock you down. Secondly, understand that we all go through the tsunami effect and emotional hijacking. So if we want to be able to change those things, the first step is becoming more responsive and less reactive. How do you do that? You need to become more aware when the mind is very chaotic, when the emotions are charged, and you have to be willing to put in the time to just sit with yourself, breathe. Remember what I told you? Imagine you're walking out and walking into a room inside. and you're sitting there with yourself. So begin with a 5-minute practice. I'll offer you guys something. If you WhatsApp the number, we have 2 guided meditation videos audios that I have put together. One's a 2-minute one and one's a 9-minute one. If you want it, just WhatsApp Rohan at that number and we'll send it to you. Start with 2 minutes. Finally, you'll reach a point when the days that you don't sit quietly with yourself, you will see the effect to be so huge that you won't turn back. So the way I like to put this is that right now, imagine that you're driving. I don't have any preferred brands, but imagine that you're driving the Honda, and then one day you start driving the BMW. You're never going to turn back because you're energetic, and energetically you're at such a high level that the days that you don't take time with yourself, you will not allow that to happen anymore. But you need the daily practice. So start with 2 minutes.
Hey, Radhika, thank you. I think that summed it up very, very beautifully. And on behalf of the nearly 800 people who joined in and about 700 plus people who are still on the line with us, thank you very much. And thank you because not only did you cover the theory, but you also took us through the experiential learning today. So on behalf of PMI and behalf of all the people who are attending here, thank you very much. Hopefully, we all can go and practice something. I think that's the big takeaway, right? Whatever we do, you practice. And I think I can safely say for everybody, all of us are itching to go out and drive something on the road, whether it's a Honda or a BMW.
Thank you all. I really enjoyed the session, and thank you so much, PMI. I've really enjoyed doing these sessions with you.
I request everybody to stay online. I have a few last-minute announcements as we wind up. As you all know, that PMI is offering a host of online courses that you can do from the comfort of your own home. These are things that PMI globally has put together to help us through the pandemic and help us also upskill. I would recommend you all to go take a look at it. These are sessions that are available to both PMI members and others. Check the pmi.org learning site. Disciplined Agile, which we covered in the first session, there are some very special introductory pricing as well. Please take a look at it. Continue to attend these webinars. These are going to go for the next few more weeks. For those of you who have to claim your PDUs, this is the PDU claim code. Please make a note of it, and you can claim it on by yourself, like every other session. And that brings us to the next week and the coming weeks. One of the most exciting things that's going to happen on the 20th and the 21st of June is PMRC20, or the Project Management Regional Conference for this year. This is going to be now a completely virtual conference, originally planned to happen based out of Calcutta, but the Calcutta team is still spearheading the whole organization and logistics of this. Please do register for this. This is going to be 8 hours of online conference on the 20th and 21st of June. And that weekend, we will not be hosting our Common Ground series as well. Do log in. There are a lot of interesting speakers and a lot of interesting sessions lined up for you. And that brings us to next Saturday. Next Saturday is again going to be a double bill or a double header. 2 extraordinarily senior people from the PMI world. Lee Lambert, a PMI fellow and one of the original founders. He's going to be talking about how do we handle the pandemic and a PPM perspective. Lee has been doing multiple webinars over the last month, and we're really excited to have him. The other person, one of our own, now board of director at PMI, Tejas Sura, he is going to talk about how the construction industry has to rethink and rebuild based on what has happened to all of us. But I'm sure a lot of those learnings will be applicable across domains and industries. Like always, these sessions are open to members of PMI and non-members. So do please share the links with your colleagues and friends who are not yet associated with PMI as well, and invite them to join. As you all know, it's free, and all you need to do is click a link and turn up. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all the next week as well. On that note, Radhika, thank you once again for being such a fantastic presenter today. It was really, really helpful, and I think that 5 minutes of doing really emphasized everything that you said before. For that, I thank you again. Thank you, everybody.